They can't refer people to a grow book. They can't give them the simplest set of instructions. They can't refer them anywhere. My understanding is the only thing that they've referred people to so far is Mark Emery's seeds. Before they had their own seeds available, they were actually telling people to go buy seeds off Mark Emery. Again, the program wasn't entirely fully thought out when it was brought in. And so, yeah, like I said, they came out in 2001. July 31st was when the MMAR was officially released. Again, people were expected to grow their own or find a designated grower. There was no provision to buy it from the government. And there was no means to buy seeds from the government, I don't think, at the time either. So a lot of us realized that these were so ineffective and unworkable that it would be a long time coming before it was truly functional. And but a lot of other people have really, jumped in and pushed it. It's been really interesting to see how it's progressed. So 2 years into it, I've got a bunch of stats here just to give you an idea of how many people have been brought into the program. Initially, it was very restrictive. For a person to get the license, they had to have 2 doctors' signatures, I believe, pretty much in every case. It wasn't just there's 2 sort of categories. They call it B1 and B2, and B1 is, in theory, the more serious medical problems, and B2 would be other, what might be considered less life-threatening or less serious, but nevertheless chronic pain issues. In fact, B2 can be signed for any medical problem. It's just a blanket form. It could be signed for a twitch if a doctor would sign for that, but that's very uncommon. There are a few people with mental health issues that it's signed for, but back in 2003 it was very restrictive. And there was a court decision, the Hitzig decision, with around the Toronto Compassion Club Center, got raided back in, I think it was 2002, after a robbery, and so there was a court decision come out, the Hitzig decision after that, which struck down several sections of the regulations, in theory making it a lot easier for people to sign. Now, for example, your doctor only need call a specialist who has looked at your case, or before you would actually have to go see a specialist as well as your regular GP and have both of them sign. It was very difficult to get a doctor to sign. In some cases, impossible to find a specialist in the field at all, especially in places that are much more rural than Victoria. And so it was very restrictive. One of the other controversial parts is that the doctors will give an exact amount per day that a person, in theory, would be using on average. And I think when they first came out, they tried to suggest it would be 1 to 3 grams. Well, obviously people are going to push their luck. And in some ways, for people that have got chronic pain issues and nothing to lose, I don't blame them for pushing it further and further. It started out 1 to 3 grams, and then 5 grams became quite typical. And then some people thought, and in some cases correctly so, if they told their doctor they ate it as well, they'd need twice the dosage, so suddenly 10 grams became a fairly standard rate that people might require it. Because doctors don't know what they're doing here, we've got this completely bizarre situation where some doctors are totally agreeable with signing forms. We have a doctor on the island, Dr. Gooch, works out at Duncan and Nanaimo, and he's signing forms pretty openly. If another doctor's made the diagnosis, he'll sign it. I'm not sure how many grams a day that he will go for, quite, probably 5 to 10 without much question. But there are, and I'm not kidding, there's an individual with an 84 gram a day license right now. There are people with 50 gram a day licenses. Now, I'll wrap it up a little bit here on why some of these things are occurring, but the question of how one supplies themselves, just goes directly to the licensing program. 5 grams a day would allow you, I think it's 25 plants. 10 grams a day is 49 plants. They got these funny little formulas on Health Canada's webpage. So you punch in how many grams you use and they tell you how many plants that you can grow or how many someone could grow for you. Kind of goes so fast. So I just want to finish one point though that I was making before I get to this second point here. And that is the restrictiveness of the program. Back in 2003, it was really hard to get into this, to get all the doctor's forms signed. Initially, the package that they sent you was something like 30 pages that you had to fill out all these different things and sign your life away. Still, 706 people got in. As of January this year, there's only 4,800 people that have licenses to possess cannabis. That's a really small number of people. When you think about it, if the program's been in effect for 9 years, that's 900 people a year. That is really a very small number when you look at other statistics that Health Canada has, where there's 1 million people in Canada with chronic pain issues. So right now, there's 995,000 Canadians that are in chronic pain that don't have legal access to even try a cookie. Because Health Canada's programs and licenses are set up so that legally, if people want to go buy the books, you're not supposed to try cannabis until you've got the license in your hand. They want you to fill out the forms, get your passports, pictures taken, and your doctor sign like 2 passport pictures, and go through all this hassle just to try the cookie for the first time. Any other drug, they'll give you samples of just about anything that you want. But the program is really set up for people that either know how to grow cannabis, have someone that can grow it, knows how to use it. It's not set up for people that are completely unfamiliar with it. And believe me, I'm running into little old ladies and people that are very unaware of this plant and want to try edibles and topicals and things that they're not allowed to according to this program. Because as you've heard me rant, if you've heard me before, one of the other real problems with these regulations is that while they allow you to grow cannabis, they allow your friend to grow it for you. If you make hash out of that, you've produced cannabis resin. Gee, that's separately listed. That's illegal. You're producing a controlled drug at that point. You can be charged and arrested. Hell, if you shared it with a friend of yours, that's trafficking. Not that they charge people with that too often, but the fact is that producing not only hashish, but essentially butters and vegetable oils and skin products, as soon as you've cooked it into the leaf and then separated it with a cheesecloth or a strainer of any type, you've actually technically produced THC, a separately listed drug. And ironically, synthetic versions are available. Drug companies can sell you Cessinat and Marinol. I got an email from a lady yesterday, $160 for 20 Marinol pills. That's $8 a pill. I felt guilty of charging $1 for our cookies at the store. They were 75 cents, but actually it's the food, the flour and eggs and such that are going up that make me at least put it towards cost. But I know one of our cookies is better than an $8 synthetic version of THC. So anyway, they don't allow you to do that. That's one of the problems. Now, I'm all for overgrowing the government, so I don't want to sound critical of the individuals that are taking advantage of Health Canada's programs, and I don't want to sound overly critical of some of the growers or companies that are taking advantage of Health Canada's programs. But what started out, at least in theory, to be a half-assed program for medical users is going into a full tilt overgrow the government program. And it's really unfortunate that they didn't regulate dispensaries like my own. We've got 3,400 people there. They don't come every day. Some have other supplies of cannabis. So I figure we're probably actively helping between 2,000 and 2,500 people. Go through about 70 pounds a month. It's a pretty busy place. I got about 24 growers that work for my client. So let's just say I got 20 people supplying 2,000, right? That's a grow up for every 100. That kind of makes sense, right? Like I got some guys working pretty hard. Some people don't